from 17 once again. This is my Crysis 3 Super Soldier difficulty video walkthrough. This is Chapter 6, Only Human, which is an apt title because, you know, this game is all about the species. It's all about the difference between the species and the cognitive dissonance that exists between our species, where we're living in this future dystopian ruined New York where there are aliens that are trying to exterminate us, and the real enemy turns out to be fellow man, because a lot of this game and a lot of the people we're fighting on this is all orchestrated by other human beings. Which, you know, I'm not trying to make out that it's a social commentary, even though you can analyse anything, you know, for value these days and then turn it into 9/11, because shit's just weird. But it is a cool concept, and this level here is one of the missions where you're taking on both factions. You're taking on human factions, you're taking on Seth factions, and the factions will be fighting. And it's not too much of a challenging level. It's more of a fun level. There are moments where you can die, for sure. There's a lot of enemies coming up in some of these later areas. This sequence here, for instance, you haven't really seen me kill too much in this game. Mainly because it's not the way you want to play on Super Soldier to get the easiest path through the game. Like, anybody who wants a challenge on this game, because a lot of people have left comments saying, you know, using the bow makes the game easy, which it does. You know, the bow's very powerful, it's way too powerful. You know, using the cloak makes the game easy, which it does, it's way too powerful. If you don't want to have the game be too easy on Super Soldier, use nothing but armor and run and gun. And I can guarantee you will find all the challenge you could possibly want. And it's not going to be, you know, like some of the most sadomasochistic games you've ever played, because it's probably quite manageable, because the cloak, the armor's very powerful too. But it's going to be much more difficult than what you're going to see in these videos. And, you know, there's a time and a place for that kind of stuff. I don't think there is stuff like that on YouTube. There might be someone who's a hardcore Crysis fan who's decided to do some challenge runs of Crysis, but when it comes to the first-person shooters and games that are outside of the action genre, you don't generally find those type of players that do the restriction runs or the crazy challenge runs, because the game itself does not have that measure of skill when it comes to performing. You know, a lot of these first-person shooters rely on the fact that your health regenerates, and if we didn't have that, these games would be insane. Like, imagine if Call of Duty had medpacks still, or health canteens, or whatever you want to call them. Those campaigns, Call of Duty 4 would have been a considerably different campaign. You know, World at War, considerably different campaign, and very, very fucking hard, because any game that forces you to move, or forces you to go into a danger zone to get life back, is going to be tough, because you're putting yourself in a position to take more damage, and at a moment when you're at your most vulnerable, that is the last thing you want to do. And I'm going to be segueing quite a lot into an RPG on the Wii that I'm playing called The Last Story. And, you know, funny I should say this, but on The Last Story, there are two very interesting heal mechanics on that game. One of them involves using it's essentially a buff. Think of it as like adding a buff to your character. And every time you do a strike, it heals you a little bit. Every time you do an action, you know, like when you attack an enemy. And that is your main way of healing outside of doing a special charge attack on a circle of influence that your healers have laid down on the ground, which does a nice universal heal. But both of those healing mechanics mean that you have to put yourself in the danger zone and risk dying to get the heal, which does add skill, but it can also add, you know, a lot of unfriendly deaths. And in an RPG context, especially this one in particular, it's not that punishing until later on in the game. In Crysis, I don't know, the cloak would probably help, but you could still get yourself into some real bad situations. And I'm trying to think of how do we get around that? How do we get it so that the difficulty is challenging, but it's not a case of just sitting in cover, perpetually waiting for health regen? Because this generation of gaming has got a lot of that. This shooter right here has got that, you know. A lot of the guys that I've made this year have had that. It's this trope that we fall back on because nobody can think of a system that works any better, and there have been some interesting, tries to change this paradigm. Like, of all the games, Duke Nukem Forever, it wasn't a good game by any standards, but it had a system where when you did a melee attack, if you could execute an enemy, you got life back. And I thought that was a really interesting system, but I don't think they did it well. And what I mean by this is not a grope at the game, because Duke Nukem's a game you're either going to like or you're going to hate, and I thought I was going to like it and I hated it. Oh, when you press these, by the way, you don't have to kill anybody in these rooms. All you have to do is get to these power packs. You can completely run and put your armor on and just tank it and cheese it if you want to. It's the exact same as doing it stealth, only you'll not get spotted as much. And as soon as you hit that, you're going into this kind of overcharge mode where you've got a lot of heal, you've got automatic perfect armor, I think it's called, full energy, and you're a badass essentially. It's a super useful thing. That fall right there, if you do not activate your armor, you are dead. Guaranteed. Prophet has the weakest ankles. It is unbelievable. Anybody would think he was, like a newly born ostrich or something. Just no good when it comes to the direct damage to his ankle. But this sequence here, once you jump off this island, you're going to be in this little shallow bay area. I'm going to run as fast as I can until my cloak runs out. As soon as my cloak runs out, they're going to spot me. There they go. Then I'm going to go behind this rock, and I'm going to let the cloak come back. You'll notice they can't see me anymore. Back into cloak, and then we can go towards the pipe. You can die on that moment if you take too much damage, but you should be okay. This mission is a lot more intimidating to look at than it is to play. And hopefully by the end of this series of walkthroughs, you'll have no issue with it, and chances are you probably won't have issue with it anyway, and you're just watching this to see if any interesting tangents get mentioned, or if I share any opinions that you agree with or disagree with. But where Duke Nukem went wrong, to me, is there was no guarantee you could execute the enemies. You had to put them into a down state, and everybody who's played a game that utilises a down state will know that it's random. There are certain ways to guarantee downing an enemy in certain games, but for the most, there is always the probability of it's not going to work. And the biggest problem with the heal is it has to be reliable. If the heal isn't reliable, it can become cheap, and cheap gameplay is something that gamers get extremely frustrated with. But if you've never come to this direction, and you're wondering why I have, there's a mortar team. This rebel mortar team as a secondary objective, and what they'll do is they enable you to target the pingers coming up, and you can wipe out the giant pingers very quickly, or you can wipe out at least 2 of them, I believe. And that way you don't have to fight them. But do not worry, I've just said pinger. Anybody from Crysis 2 just had a shiver down their back because they remember that the pingers were a massive nuisance and very, very tricky on Super Soldier. But on this game, they can kill you very fast, but they also die really fast, so I think it's a lot more balanced than the boss fight on the previous game, but it also makes them extremely underwhelming, because you're anticipating this giant fucking asshole to turn up, and when he does, he turns out to be just ever so slight asshole. So yeah, there he is. There is a pinger. There is the guys that... I mean, the tiny too, it's like a baby pinger. It's like if Gizmo never had water splattered on him and he was a robot that just so happened to inhabit the fantastical world of future New York Crysis time. That's what he would look like, and the evolved Gremlin version, badasses, would be the pingers from Crysis 2, because much bigger, much more dangerous, much more life, all that kind of good stuff. But it's just strange that there's some interesting gameplay changes to this game from the last one. That right there could have been mines, could have been a pinger shooting me. You'll notice on the map there's a yellow triangle, which means that something's seen me. And if it is a pinger, they do massive damage, so... That might not happen to you when you play, but something definitely hurt me. I don't know why I said that wrong. But something damaged my character, so... Just, respond to it, get cover, get your energy back, go back into cloak, and then push forward. Because there is one pinger left and there are these minefields, and the minefields don't seem like that big of a deal until they rape you. Like Kurt Russell when he goes through the Stargate in South Park. It's a tough ride. But there is... Is that me? Oh no, I've already neutralised him, that's okay. Because the hack We're currently using the upgrade that enables the hack to be quicker, so doing it on the mines takes, no time at all. It's super quick. And we're now progressing up to the next area that we have to press one of those energy fields to overcharge the Ceph. I'm not too sure what the hell we're doing, guys. I am sorry. Like, I played this game... How many weeks ago did I play this game? It might have been about a month back, and... I've not been doing much commentary. A, because I got a little bit... not fed up is not the right word. I didn't have the urge, the impulse, or the passion to do it. So I didn't do it for about a week or two. And I was still getting gameplays, I was still recording guides, but because I wasn't doing the commentaries, they were stacking up, and now I have a big pile. And then I ended up getting ill, and then obviously this illness was a fever and a virus that affected my throat and gave me headaches and all kinds of stuff. So I wasn't able to do much then. So now I'm now coming back, going through the backlog, and there will be casualties of this. Hence, I'm not too familiar with the objective right now, but all I know is that there are 2 blue things on the hood that have measurements on them, and as soon as we cross the distance to those measurements, we'll get to our destination, and then we'll do some shit. And I know the destination is those power cells that we have to overload, and then we go all crazy mode, and then I know that there's a boss coming up, but aside from that, folks, I'm not too plussed on all the details, so I apologise in advance. But that right there is one of those Scorcher turret guys. If you put on your electrical arrows, you can fuck them up almost immediately. I have picked up a railgun. I'm not too sure the name of the gun, but it's essentially a railgun. It's a cool weapon. It's very fun to use, and it's very powerful. That is a grenade launcher there. You can't quite tell because I'm invisible. This is the railgun. And as you see, it doesn't come with many shots, but the shots count. And I've always been that kind of guy, personally. I like having a weapon that works. If you can aim, you can win. That is my motto on a lot of these kind of games, and he hasn't noticed me just yet. He did then, so grab him, give him a quick chuck. That always underwhelms me, that throw on this one, and on the second one as well. On the first game, when you pick up the soldiers and you throw them, you can throw them to a different continent. It's hilarious. They just turn into the most aerodynamic paper airplane people you've ever met. But the Ceph, I don't know if it's because they're heavier. Gave him a couple of cock punches because it wouldn't let me grab him. I'm not too sure, but the throw always feels really flat. Like, you pick it up, you're choking it. You're doing the whole Predator to Arnie moment where he's choking him. And it goes nowhere. So, always feels very underwhelming, but put your armor on to survive the fall. Get your health back, and then use your cloak to push forward. I'm going to be getting a little bit more reckless with these sequences because I know all I have to do is get to those power cells. As soon as I hit those power cells, I get a nice little cutscene and a checkpoint. And this is one of those moments where if you take your time, it can definitely be longer than it needs to be. And Crysis is already a pretty short game, but you can kind of tell that these moments were meant to take longer than they do sometimes. Because it's a big area, there's a lot of enemies, there's a lot of intricate AI paths, and look, there's Scorchers firing flames and laying covering fire, and all kinds of madness, but I'm just, creeping my way around, climbing in your house, taking your kids, all that fantastical, auto-tuned news broadcast stuff. But there's the energy coming back, there's a couple of Cephs to our left, but your map is more powerful than anything, because, look at it. I can tell everywhere people are looking. I can see the threat meter when I look at the map. You can play the majority of this game literally like a real-time strategy game, just watching that radar. But thank you for watching, folks. I'll see you in part 2, and you take care now.